Hello, storyteller, storytelling Ryan. Okay, I'm Autoback 5375. I really appreciate your comments, and so that's I'm just going to go ahead and do a video on it because you're really got you're really very nice comments, and questions too. So I'm going to answer this again at the top of off the top of my head. Just some thoughts. I mean, I actually I've been doing a little bit of research because I actually plan on doing a role playing game in the Gothic 14th century, which is right before the Reformation. And I really haven't studied a whole lot about that. The reason I haven't studied a lot about it is because I have been studying Star Wars. I've been studying D&D. What a waste of time, just dissipation, a waste of time for me and for Christians. That's why I'm always pushing for Christians to do RPGs, because I'm doing the Dark Ages, I have actually been studying church history, which I have been neglecting as a Christian who does Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games. And that's why I'm so critical of them now. I don't hate them. I don't consider Christians that play them to be sinners, but I'm using my hyperbole to really come after Christians who are in the RPG culture, just to push them, to hey, do something joyful for the Lord. And this is joyful now. I love now delving into church history, which I did not do as a Christian. So let's just go into this now. John Calvin, I don't really know that much about John Calvin as a Christian, but I just hear that the Calvin and is kind of where it all started with Luther and Calvin or whatever. But we're called Calvinists, or we're called Reformed Baptist, or we're called, I don't know what the heck, elect, whatever we are. Anyway, I use Calvin just because it seems like a trigger word for the woke, for the left. They're like, oh, he hated Jews, he's anti-Semitic and killed people and all that. So, okay, let's go through this. Your question. I do have an issue with okay, you already said a really nice comment somewhere. Oh, I do very much appreciate this video. You have helped me gain more perspective on the subject and your point of view. You are very articulate and obviously passionate about this subject. Thank you very much for this. What a rare positive comment. Anyway, and thank you, Christian RPG Gamers, for your support and commenting. Okay, Autoback. Oh, Christian Crimson Creed. Appreciate that. Okay. Let me just say about him real quick. Every Christian dude always says, "Oh, there's a good book you got to read, man." Every dude I talk at church is like, "Another book, really?" Yeah. But R.C. Sproul is obviously a big guy with MacArthur at our church, and I haven't read Chosen by God. I haven't even read Mere Christianity, which is kind of one I want to read too. But I guess I'm kind of, I don't know if I've been a Christian now for 12, 14 years or whatever, but I've been kind of, I don't know, delving into the Bible mostly, and then doing a lot of creation science. I really obsess over that, and then I do a lot of stuff like this, like online. I read articles and stuff. But anyway, and follow like YouTubers. But anyway, Autoback. I do have an issue with this. There are many instances of even Calvinists killing and forcing unbelievers. I'm from the Netherlands, and here there have been many cases of killings and forced conversion by Christians. I think the Netherlands too was where a big part of the republic was established, a constitutional republic, right? And back in the early medieval period, like a really strong democratic kind of republic, constitutional republic, I believe. I don't know. I just remember watching a movie or two about that, and they were the one non-king nation for a while there. I don't know. Anyway. Okay, there are many Calvinists killing and forcing unbelievers. Okay, and from the Netherlands here, there have been many cases of killings and forced conversions by Christians. With Muslims, this is the same. It happens in every religion, and many people don't agree with it. The big difference is that we have many examples of contemporary Islamic states which force their religion upon people, right? Most of the Christian countries have separated from the church, so we don't see that much of this anymore. It has happened a lot through history, and I have not found substantial evidence that it has been to a much lesser degree, and I have not found substantial evidence that it has been to a much lesser degree than in Islamic countries. Okay. The early Islamic empire that reigned over much of Spain, Portugal, and Italy were even famous for their tolerance of religions in the same period that the Catholic Church was actively torturing and killing non-believers throughout Europe. Okay. All lies! Lies! All right. Let's start with, I'll just go kind of in order here. Okay, many instances of Calvin. Okay, let's just go. I'm going to go in the back. The Catholic Church was actively torturing, killing non-believers. Okay, that's actually not true. Were they torturing? A bit, but the Inquisition actually. I am not ashamed of. I'm a Protestant, but and I'm trying to tell Protestants to stop it. We should not be ashamed of the witch trials, the Inquisition, or the Crusades. We were going up against Islam. We were going up against a torturous, terrorist, force people. It's in their doctrine to force people to convert. Right? Islam is in the Quran. Now, in the New Testament, there's no rule that says you have to force unbelievers to be Christian. There's no rule in there. Okay? In the New Testament, there's no claim that you can't do it, or it doesn't say it. Now, when man does it in Christians or whatever, or in Christianity, or especially in the Calvinist form or whatever, whatever, as a Christian, then they're not following Jesus. Jesus never forced anyone to convert in there, right? He ran away. In there, it describes he runs away from the mobs many times. He escapes with his magic, whatever. He runs away. He doesn't force them to convert. In Islam, that's completely different. Muhammad was a conqueror, a military conqueror in the Quran and in history. But Jesus was never a conqueror. And when he says he came to bring the sword, he does say that in one statement, and he does say that, but it was meant. He never used a sword. It was meant that even in a family, you're going to have people, the separation of them, the believers and the non-believers. He said that he knows that what he's bringing is controversial and it's going to separate people. But he never brought the sword himself. He never did that. And he said, you guys got to have swords. Why? Not to war, but just to defend yourselves. You're going to be persecuted. You're going to be hunted. All the apostles all died horrifically. All of his direct apostles died. Right, every one of them. Like, it's kind of, after hearing like the fourth or fifth one, it kind of gets hilarious. Like in a dark comedy way. It's like, again, what? They're just preaching, and then they get hung, they get stabbed, skinned alive or whatever, hung upside down, crucified this way, crucified that way, boiled, whatever. They I don't remember all of it, but it's like, went to India, got killed, went to Africa, got killed, went to, whatever. So we cannot forcefully make someone Christian. Now, have Christians done that? Yes. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to explain that as we go along in this. Okay. But also the Catholic Church never officially had, and especially I think after 12th century, whatever it was, there was a period there where they did do some torture, but it was torture in the sense of like discomforts. There was some whippings, but it wasn't like that medieval, dark, creepy, bloody stuff. It was more like they were doing trials. They were warning. They were, please stop what you're doing. You're and Alex and on many of our videos I've explained some of the things that they do, but they were sexualizing children. Just like today, drugs. They use drugs. The love potion was the most common example of what witches created from 5th century, whatever. Forever. What is the love potion? It's a rape drug. Think about it. When you put this, when a person gets a love potion from a witch, they will take it and secretly put it into the person's drink or whatever, and that person will be ecstasy, whatever it is, and then they will fall, make the wrong choices in that moment with the predator, and the predator will rape them, take advantage, whatever it is, and then if they do rape them, especially if they're a virgin, they will be forever imprisoned by that person because they're now soiled and in that culture. So the church, even the local officials, the dukes and all that, hated these sort of rustic pagan witches who did these kinds of things, and they feared those types of powers that these let's just go with the rape drug, and so they had to hunt them down, and they had rules, and the locals actually were the worst instigators of witch trials and torture and all that. And the church would try to come in and let's all calm down. We got to enforce this, but let's calm down a little. So the Inquisition was actually formed, especially in Spain, against the Muslims because of how brutal the locals were in trying to get rid of the Muslims, because they knew how brutal and torturous the Muslims were. Now you're saying here too about the early Islamic empires that reigned over much of Spain and Italy and Portugal were famous for tolerant religions. They were famous for their enslavement of Christians. They loved to have Christians as their slave class. and Jews as their slave class that they ruled over. Every Islamic empire does not. They have a thing called the Jiza tax or whatever. It's today. It's modern. It's in the Quran where they can punish and tax Christians specifically to enslave them. So as far as you're saying they're tolerant of that, of yes, enslaving Christians because they want a slave class. And that's true in any Islamic country today. As a Christian, if I go to an Islamic country today, they can insult me, they can berate me, they can burn the Bible, but if I do anything to their Quran or to them, right, I'll be murdered or sentenced to death. In Pakistan, there's a Christian right now who merely shared a social media file, and he's now going to be killed. He has to like a 22-year sentence, and at the end of the 20 years, they'll execute him. I mean, there's that, and that's ongoing, like over and over. That's ongoing, and there's obviously in Islamic countries even today the notion of abducting Christian women and raping them and then forcing them into their marriages, and then the local authorities don't do anything about it. This is constant in Islamic territories, and it is in the Quran too. So there's nothing like that in the Christian book. There's nothing about capturing, stealing, whatever that the Islamic Empire is doing. And I also read the biography of El Cid. Actually, I read the biography of El Cid when he was during that period, and it was crazy. Even the Catholic churches back then, and the local Christian Catholics or whatever there was so much like infighting. It was incredible that they even were able to finally unify to beat out Islam. It took them 800 years. 800 years. I mean, the story of El Cid is incredible and crazy. The way he had to go back and forth between Catholics and Muslims in his persecution as he was persecuted, and then and finally achieved success at the end or whatever. I might have to reread that book again. It was just like I couldn't believe it. Like I couldn't believe how much ridiculousness the Catholic Church sabotaged their own potential success in dealing with Islam. So again, Islam does not mind. Islam loves Jews. They love Jews. They love enslaving Jews, and they love enslaving Christians. And there's a roller coaster of history where there are tolerant Muslims, but then there are the evil, the horrible evil ones. And that's the whole point of the Crusades too. For hundreds of years, there were tons of Christian pilgrimages to Jerusalem, and the Muslims who ruled it were fine with it because of all the economy. But then there would always become a zealot who would then start killing and persecuting and hanging them off the walls, pilgrims. And that's how the Templars and that formed, was because of that and because of the assassins and all that stuff. So anyway, I'm just going off on what I know here. Okay, so in Islamic countries today, you don't see freedom, but you do. Yeah, you do in Christians here. Most of the Christian countries have separated from the church. That's because that's actual maturation of the Christian faith to do that. The Christian faith is one where the government should be separated from the church, and we believe that. And we don't believe in forcing the law, the sword of justice. In the New Testament, it says the government is the sword of justice, not the church. The church's authority is over the people in the church. So, our biggest power of the church is to kick you out if you're terrible. Now, concerning, and I'm going to go over some. I just researched John Calvin and some other stuff. So as far as and think about this about Christianity too. Sorry, I'm pointing my finger at you. Here's something amazing too, and this is also about slavery that I've learned that's never been talked about. But so the Martin Luther and all that was about 16th century, right? Luther, 1500s. But by the 1900s or by 1800s, from 1500 to 1800, so 300-400 years maybe, was when this great schism of Protestants and Catholics and murderous, crazy stuff. But it only lasted 300 years. Like that's it. It didn't go on. It finally, with the Christians and Protestants, kind of like, okay, it takes a while in history for people to stop being so freaking evil to each other. Even Christians. Remember, Jesus said we're all sinners. We are all sinners. So, and it says in the Bible, there are going to be so many false Christians who say they come in the name of the God, but then they do horrible things. So if you think about it, in your accusations of the Christian, or whatever, you're not accusation, but you're seeing the failings of Christianity in the church. the Bible says it's going to have failings. So the Christianity gets it right. We are sinners. We are going to pick up stones and try to throw it at others. And Jesus says, put your, Jesus said, whoever is without sin may pick up the stone and throw it. And obviously, there's so much incredible difficulties in the world that, Christians are a part of it. We're a part of frustrations, of failings, of violence, of impatience, and even at the local neighbor to neighbor level, we're going to have arguments and lose our cool just from neighbor to neighbor. Christians, even Christians within the church arguing will start fisticuffs, start beating each other. It happens because we're all sinners. And so I'm going to go over some other stuff here that I just researched, and I'm actually wanting to research this stuff soon for my own. I'm going to do a 14th century role-playing game with, Gothic RPG. And so that's I'm sort of jumping the gun right now by responding to you, but this is stuff I definitely do want to research. I'm trying to focus on 6th, 7th century right now because of the Dark Ages. I want to create more stuff for that. But I want to go over this kind of interesting stuff here. Let's see. Let's go, John. So John Calvin, I'm reading this, and I thought he, this is Wikipedia, so I'm assuming they're going to be harsh on him. And actually, it's pretty mild. I was kind of surprised they didn't bring up too many controversies. And he like they say John Calvin was such a crazy zealot, but he's part of like all these town councils, and he's being kicked out and moved around, and he has to deal with the local government all the time, and they take some of the power of the church, and he like relents. He even asked to resign a few times because of all the controversies. And then there's one crazy dude that they do end up executing down here, Michael Servetus, whatever. But it turns out like that this guy was like trolling Calvin for years, like sending him letters, and then he's going after all these other churches, and they're all like, what the heck, stop, and like it was like a whole ordeal. It wasn't just like, oh, you're saying the right thing, we're gonna kill you, And then when they wanted to execute him, burning him alive slowly, even the Catholic Church got involved. That's interesting that the Protestants and the Catholics actually both worked together to get this dude. And Calvin just said, can you just, behead him? Still, but that would have been quicker and painless. Whereas the Catholic Church is like, no, we're gonna burn him because he's, it's been way. Like this whole, just hearing what this guy sends Calvin like 30 letters, and and Calvin's like, leave me alone, and he wouldn't leave him alone. And Calvin, it's just, I don't know, it's just a fascinating read. I haven't really read a whole lot about it. I just kind of went through all this, but again, like he was like, I resign, I quit, and the council's like, no, we're gonna keep you, and we're gonna keep you some more and make you do more, whatever, and so it was like they were forming a civilization. I mean, and I don't want to. We can't. It's crazy how atheists today and secularists will judge Christians so ruthlessly, but they're not going to judge Karl Marx or all the fascism and communism that killed millions within the modern history, where no church was involved at all. But then they'll go back and look at his couple little failings or precious, and like there was a period here where some of the libertarians hated the way you couldn't dance. There wasn't like couldn't have festivals or parties. So yeah, I that would drive me nuts as a Calvinist. I don't know. So anyway. So and then I'm reading on. Oh no, I don't. This is cool for my my game, but I don't. Let me go to this. The penitential code. The penitentials are really interesting to me because these, when I came across these for 6th, 7th century, these are the original starting. This is the 6th century, so barely the church was forming, and they were barely surviving. I mean, they were barely surviving. They, literally at 500 AD, the only like Christian church there was the heretics who ruled all around them with their pagan Christianity all around them, and the only true Christian church, the Catholic Church at the time, 500 AD, was only half of Rome, part of Rome. This was 500 years after Jesus Christ. The church barely was existing. That's crazy. So So the church was constantly struggling with city councils, dukes, lords, princes, barons, and remember, these are all crazy people, and the church is trying to deal with that. So it's an incredible, like, I wish this information was, it's just so much. I wish there was like if Star Wars has the Wikipedia, where you could literally go in and cross-reference characters and periods and all that. I wish there was like a church history, nerdopedia for Christians like that. Maybe this is it. I just got to keep going through all this. There's so much, and in Wikipedia, I don't really trust Wikipedia, but I don't know what else to do. I might get Britannica, but we'll see. Maybe there's a Catholic Protestant one. I don't know. Anyway, here is. Let me read this little bit here. This is the punishments for being a witch or a pagan or whatever. Originally written in Latin, most of the 50 canons in the penitential are applicable to both the clergy and the laity. However, the author notes that the clergy are liable to stricter penances. Concerns raised in the penitential range from abortion to witchcraft. The typical penances offered are either abstinence from food or abstinence from sex, with the most serious sins, such as homicide, warranting a 7-year exile. So, my point in this is that the church never meant to be to torture people, to execute people, to destroy them. When it started, they were doing penance. Like, they just ask you abstinence from food and abstinence from sex. That was the penances, with the most serious sins being a 7-year exile. And I'm assuming this is for those who willingly want penance, who willingly confess their sins. For those, this is for abortion to witchcraft. And the list of things they did in witchcraft were very sexual, very manipulative. The drug potion, the rape, the all kinds of like pornographic stuff. And they had a whole list of detailed things or whatever. My point being that the clergy were giving them this, penance, please. So think about that. When you think about then 600 years later, 700 years later, 13th century, 14th century, when the witches openly declared allegiance with Satan, and the church said, hey, the penances don't seem to be changing their minds. So obviously the local authorities and the church were like, this is not working because witchcraft was exploding. All the type of, and what is witchcraft? It's all about you. If I was a pagan and I wanted a witch to help me, I basically want a life cheat. I want power over other people. Rape, drug. I want to know the future so that I can control people. I want my farms to be more successful than the other person. I want magic to do it because I can't do it myself. Apparently, I'm an idiot or whatever. But it's all about material gain, and material gain at the expense of others, probably, right? For the most part. And obviously, you're enriching the witches, and so the witches get more powerful. They get richer and more influential. And what do they teach? They're teaching all this power over others, religion. So what is a Christian to do? So when you're saying, when you think about it too in history, when you're thinking like, oh, Christians are persecuting others, it's like, what do you do with witches who want to persecute anyway? What do? You have to, has to be this modicum of morality that even Christians have to say, this is the buck, this is it, no more, you can't go below this. And today Christians in the church are so weak that look what's happening. Look what's happening to our children here in America. I don't know about the Netherlands, but they're getting butchered, surgically butchered, drugged. The gay pride parades are sexually showing themselves in the public, and this is all on being documented, and the local authorities are in on it. Okay, and so the church is not forcing anything on anyone. So look what's happening. Since the church is not being, what do you're saying? I just want to use your words against you. Torturing and killing non-believers. Well, and I explained that, but Calvinists killing and forcing unbelievers. So if people want to murder children, like the unborn, and we don't want them to murder children, the unborn, what is the compromise? And today, and obviously we Christians, we're not going to go around murdering people because they're doing child sacrifices. We're trying to make it into laws, right? We're trying to push the law. We're trying to get the government back into as the sword of justice. Thusly, if we succeed, we will have a sword of justice of you can't have abortions, right? You have to, you can't murder the children. So what happens then to the doctors who do it? And to, it's a law. We're creating laws that you have to follow or be killed. If you don't follow a parking ticket, you will be killed, right? If you don't comply with a parking ticket, you will be killed. If you don't pay the ticket, you'll get your license revoked. If you keep driving, you'll get your car taken. Well, you're not going to let them take your car, so, well, we're going to have to bring the police. Well, you're not going to let them, so you know what I mean? So every law is a death sentence. So basically what you're saying is, how can Christians enforce laws that's so unfair? They're killers and forcing unbelievers. You're basically saying we can't do what everyone else does, which is create laws, create a morality that we all have to follow, even the unbelievers. The unbelievers have to follow this morality, whatever it is. Now, here's the thing, below with Christians, we can't force you to believe in Jesus Christ. We can't force you to be a Christian, but we can do, which is what everyone does, is force you to have a morality that you have to follow, right? And that's the contention today. That's contention forever. The pagan society here in America wants sexualizing children, sacrificing children. Christians, we don't want that. Are we the oppressors because we don't want them to sexualize children? We don't even want Christians to sexualize children, right? We don't want pastors. Pastors who sexualize children are bad, even to us Christians. We want them out. We have some famous pastors that are being exposed today that have done that. We're all sinners. That is why we Christians also believe in separation of power. Pastors should not have too much power in the church. They should have elders who watch over them. Pastors watch the elders watch the pastor. Same with the government. We want a president, but we want a Congress, and we want a court system of judges, so they're all watching each other. We want a constitutional republic, so there's a document we all can see and follow. So when think about that, when you're saying Calvinists killing and forcing unbelievers, churches torturing and killing non-believers, what is the compromise? What is the workout between witches who want to sacrifice children and we Christians that don't want them to sacrifice children? Are we the oppressors now? So that's the thing about history. And I'll just finish with this. Think about all the nations of the world and where people are prospering, people have freedom, potential, individual rights. Think about what nations those are. And I will say that they are all ones that are influenced by Christianity. They all have a Christian underpinning. It's obviously low right now, the church and the Christian faith in the Western world. But the white Western world is the most Christian as far as like historically and the foundation of its politics. And sadly the pagans are taking over, but in my ministry now is to, in the RPG culture, is to try to wake up the men there, is that that's where the freedoms are, and we're losing them because obviously the church is really weak right now, but we're losing them. But the place where all of this crazy freedom, all these snide people, all these spoiled people that can yell and scream and do very horrible public things like in these pride parades, they're there because of the freedoms and not morality, but freedoms we have given in a Christian culture. You don't have that in non-Christian cultures. You don't have that kind of freedom. Let me know if you know of a nation that has that kind of freedom. Like for instance, Japan. Some people think Japan, but no, we defeated them. The Christians defeated them in 1945 in World War II, and then we set up their nation, for them, and now they're living off of that. Anyway, so I hope that answered your questions about Christianity. All of this will never convert you to Christianity, right? All of this will never convert you. I'm hoping that your questions are so genuine that you're just looking for help and that the Lord, the God, is drawing you towards Him. I hope God is drawing you towards Him, and that I'm just helping you sort of assuage your roadblocks, so that you can then look, not be ashamed of this, and be joyful and open and ask Christ into your life, and and start your own wonderful journey toward God and toward Christ. But again, that's not up to me. Okay, so I hope that answered your stuff, and thank you for pushing me forward a little, because I definitely want to study this stuff more now that I'm free from Star Wars and D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and all that just dumb stuff. I mean, it's interesting, it's fun, but church history is way more intense. Anyway, all right. For anyone else there, thanks for listening. I gotta go do some stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of in a staycation holiday right now, July 4th week. I'm kind of in this weird despondent silliness of the whatever. Anyway, all right. In the game of life, everybody roll holy dice.